Welcome! Today we are going to be talking about the mysterious history of tarot. So, if you are not able to make it to my class that I did in person, this is for you. And I hope that you're super duper excited about it. But I tell you what, I do not think that you are as excited about it as I am. And I think that is because I had a Red Bull. So, pardon me if I go really, really fast and I'm super duper excited about this because I had the Red Bull, but it was sugar free. Now, before we dive into this, I just want to tell you that I want to take you along on a journey for this month. And this month on the Spiritual AF Life podcast, we are going to be diving deep into the world of tarot and oracle cards. So I hope that you join me every single Wednesday right here. And you know that I do the readings on Monday. And to help you out just a little bit more, I want to give you the Oracle one-on-one course. And it's going to be pay what you can. The link is going to be in the show notes, and I go through everything that you need to know about oracle cards. You can also apply it to tarot as well, because we have like advanced card spreads in there, regular card spreads, how to interpret using your intuition, how never to be nervous doing readings ever again. All of my tips and tricks and everything else are inside of the Oracle 101 course, including the tarot as well. So we do talk about that in the course, and I hope that you love it, love it, love it. Consider it kind of like a gift, and also kind of maybe like an anti-Black Friday thing, because everybody's doing the Black Friday thing. So here is my Black Friday stuff. So go ahead and grab it in the show notes. You can pause me, go grab it, and then come back if you want. But let's get to the mysterious history of the tarot. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Let's get started. So, first off, we're going to talk about what in the world tarot is, the origins, key players, card decks, and also readings. It's going to be super duper fun. All right, so we first have to tell you what in the world tarot is, because a lot of times people think that tarot and oracle cards are the same, and the truth is it is not the same. And it's really funny to me sometimes when people are like, oh, was you a tarot reading? And they're totally using oracle cards, and it's just like a pet peeve of mine, but it's okay because at once upon a time, I did not know that there was a difference. So here is what tarot cards are. First, they are a card deck made up of 78 cards, okay, that are now used for divination. They weren't always used for divination. We'll get to that. But it has 22 major arcana and 56 minor arcana. Those minor arcanas have 4 suits. It's often associated with predicting the future, but it can reflect so much more than just the future. That is one thing that really bothers me when people find out that I'm a psychic. They're like, oh, really? You're a psychic? Tell me the lottery numbers. And it's like, that is not how it works. And I feel like that's very like ignorant and also immature way of thinking. It's like we have grown as a society and we understand the power of divination at least a little bit more now. So that is what tarot is. We will be going into the differences of oracle and tarot coming up, but this is what tarot is. It is going to be a deck of cards that has 78, and it has a major and minor arcana, and then the minor arcana has those 4 suits within them. Capiche? Capiche. All right, so let's get into the origins of tarot, because it might not be what you think it is. So, first off, tarot cards were originated and created for a card game. All right. And it made its way to Italy in the 15th century. All right. So at this point, it had the 22 cards known as the major arcana, and they were basically added to the regular playing card deck. So just kind of imagine like a deck of playing cards, and then imagine, a couple more like major arcanas of the tarot, like the wheel and the moon and the star and the empress and the emperor and the hermit, and all those added to a regular playing card deck. And that's basically what you had when tarot first came to Italy. All right. So now this is very interesting, is that the games that were used to play for tarot were kind of known as triumphi. So it's Trionfi, or triumphs. Okay. And this was in Northern Italy. And it was really, really big with like the aristocrats, you might have heard, and people of high society. But here's the thing. Why was it so big with people in the high society? And that is because, dun dun dun, it was illegal to do card games. It was illegal to do card games because they thought that it gave like bad advice. It led people down a path of trouble and mischief and things like that. That it would lead to things like gambling, that it would lead to things like, losing your money, and then, you would decrease morale in the town and that kind of stuff if you played cards. But the people who are higher in society, they were able to do it because the leadership, if you want to call it that, they were like, oh, you're not so prone to, gambling and the mischief and lowering of the morale of the society. So we're going to let you do it. So that is a cool reason, or I would say cool reason, but very interesting reason on why it was so common among the upper classes of society. All right, so now we're going to get into the Biscotti deck. Now, this is a deck. If you are watching on YouTube, you can see a picture of the deck. Okay. Now, it features traditional tarot card suits like swords, cups, and coins and batons. Okay. But it does not have the illustrations on the minor arcana like we do today. All right. And it is structured, and the imagery really help influence later tarot decks. So, this is going to be one of the most, I would say, influential decks around the time, yeah, when tarot started getting really, really big. But again, it was not used for divination purposes. It was only used for the game. And so soon, I believe it was, yes, it's during the 16th century, tarot finds its way to France, and it evolved into a different tarot card deck, which we'll get into in a moment, but it's called the Tarot de Marcel. All right. And the structure was like the same as the previous deck. And here's a really interesting thing is that one of the earliest surviving card decks of this time, the Tarot de Marcel, actually just sold in 2023. And it said that this card deck dated back to 1639. Now, as far as my memory serves me, I believe this card deck went from somewhere around like $5,000. It seemed like it was actually pretty darn cheap to have some kind of artifact like that from like the 1600s. So just keep your eyes on that. You might find yourself a deal when you're looking for some of these antique tarot cards on eBay. All right, so here is the Tarot de Marcel. So if you look at it, it kind of looks like playing cards a little bit, or you might also be able to see the traditional tarot inside of this artwork, but it's a little bit scarier in my opinion, okay? So it's an Italian suited tarot deck with 78 cards that was very popular in France between the 17th and 18th century. The major arcana is similar to the current deck, but the minor arcana did not have the artwork of the Rider-Waite tarot that we know today, and we will be getting into Rider-Waite, but it still looked like regular playing cards inside of the minor arcana. And the origins, though, of this deck was still used for the tarot game and not for divination. So that is really, really important. All right. So another person that's very important to talk about is John Baptiste Eliot. Now, I butchered his name, and I'm going to continue to butcher names because I am not the best at names. So, anyways, his name that he went by was actually Italia. All right. And that is his last name spelt backwards. As soon as I learned this about him, I'm like, oh, he is my guy. Like, because I love symbolism and things like that. That is something that I would freaking do. And so I absolutely loved that about him. But he, in 1770, released a book on how to use tarot for personal insight and predictive readings. He was basically the first person to say, hey, you can use tarot to communicate, with the spiritual realm. All right. It's super duper amazing. And he ended up creating his own card deck, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But he was the one that blazed the trail for this. Now, he also thought that the tarot was rooted in Egyptian symbolism and divination, meanings and things like that. And we're going to get into that. But he didn't talk about it as much as some other people, being like, oh no, tarot really drives from Egypt. And we're going to get into that Egyptian connection here in a moment. But he was the very first one to basically let the masses know, like, hey, you can do more than just play a game with tarot. All right. All right. Let's get to it. This is his card deck, the Grand Italia deck. All right, I'm totally butchering. It's Etteilla. All right. So this was the very first deck that we know of that was published with and exclusively for divination purposes. Now it has all 78 card decks divided into the major and the minor arcana. So it's just the same structure as a traditional tarot. The big part is, and you might have guessed it, is that it did not have the artwork on the main minor arcana like we know today. All right. So we also have to talk about Antoine Codigvelin. All right. When you pronounce his name in French, I swear it sounds like you're just saying bleh, 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 right? I'm not kidding because I've watched a lot of videos just to confirm some of my accuracy and things like that when I was diving deep into the history of tarot, because I'm not one person that just goes ahead and takes one author's or one person's, viewpoint. I have to go ahead and look into every little nitty gritty detail. All right. And we're going to get into some of those details here. But I tried to learn how to pronounce his name. I totally can't. So it's Antoine Court de Geblin. If you have no idea what the heck I'm saying, then just hop on over to YouTube and look at what I'm talking about right now. Okay. So his theory was that tarot deck held ancient Egyptian knowledge. All right. But here's the thing is that when we started looking into that, it looked like there was no real connection with Egypt and the tarot. All right. So here's the thing is that we're going to get into it, but in Asia, they went ahead and they actually invented, if you will, the traditional card deck. That traditional card deck did make its way to Egypt. And we'll go over some of the Egyptian card decks that came out of Egypt. But the thing is that it went from Egypt to Italy. And in that process is where the change happened. The change mostly happened in Italy, and they added on to the cards that stemmed from Egypt. Now they went ahead and, like he said, that is believed the Egyptian priests had distilled the ancient book of Thoth with inside of the tarot. Now, intuitively speaking, and also just gathering all the knowledge that I have, it does not seem at all like the Book of Thoth or any kind of gods were really inside of the tarot, but it does seem like maybe he was channeling and did not even know it. So it's almost like when you look back on the tarot, yes, maybe you can now see that there was Egyptian roots, but it did not happen that way. So oftentimes we can look back on something and be like, oh, maybe my intuition was guiding me, or everything happens for a reason. And we can look back on the past and see it. Just like now, if you look back or if you look into the tarot, you can find a lot of incredible connections, not just with the Book of Thoth and Egyptian connections, but you can also look and see the Myers-Briggs theory found in the tarot and Kabbalah and the Tree of Life. You can see so many different things. So I do believe that whoever created the very first version of the tarot, maybe going back to some of the people we talked about already, were channeling, but they didn't realize that they were channeling and creating something that was so monumental. Now, here's the thing is Anton, he was so amazing and he's such a great trailblazer because he taught us about reversed cards and reverse meanings on these cards. So he really did add something to the table when it came to tarot, even though a lot of his work inside of his book were basically told like it was discredited. It's like, this is not correct. This is not accurate. But there was a lot of little things with that reverse meanings on the cards being one of the biggest things that he was able to contribute to the tarot world. So kudos to him. Now, this is one of the decks that I was talking about. It's called the Mamluk deck. All right, it only has 52 cards. No major arcana. Remember, the major arcana really wasn't added until it made its way to Italy, in the 15th century. So the decks were created or originated in China and were brought to Egypt by the Mamluk Sultanate in the 14th century or earlier. Now, they featured suits of cups, coins, swords, and polo sticks. And that is because polo was a popular activity among the upper class. So I went ahead to try and purchase this deck. But I'll be honest with you, I'm just going to be completely honest. It was just way too boring. Like, I can't read these cards intuitively. It's only 52 cards. And I really do believe that it was just some kind of playing game, and I can't really read them intuitively. A lot of the cards look the same to me. So, but that is the Melnick deck that came out of Egypt. All right. Now, this is the moment that you've been waiting for. This is author Edward Waite. All right. So you might know him as the author of the Rider-Waite Tarot. So the Rider-Waite Tarot is going to be that classic card deck. So tarot has taken off into like major genres and things like that. You can get cat tarot and angel oak tarot and all the different kinds of tarot cards. But if you look at the traditional tarot, which is going to be like the tower card, everybody knows the tower card because the tower card has like people jumping off of it and there's fire and it's scary. And then you have like the devil card and it's like a devil standing there. You get the death card, which kind of looks like a knight with a skull and that kind of stuff. So you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the Rider-Waite Tarot. If not, you can go ahead. I'll put it in the show notes and then you can look at it. But this is what we're talking about. And this is the author of the Rider-Waite Tarot, which is author Edward Waite. So a little bit about him was that he was fascinated with mysticism and exotericism after the death of his sister in 1874. So he joined a secret society. He ended up having a falling out with that secret society in around the 1890s. He founded his own order, which was a fellowship of the Rosy Cross. But in 1909, he collaborated with Pamela Colville Smith to create the Rider Waite Tarot deck. So let's get right into more of that right now. So this is Pamela Coleman Smith. So she is the artist of the Rider Waite Tarot deck. The reason why she is such a freaking icon was because she is the one that finally put pictures to the minor arcana. Up until this point in 1909, when this deck was created, all the minor arcana kind of looked very similar to playing cards. So, you know, when you play cards and it's like the five of clubs and the four of hearts and things like that, it's like it just has those four swords or whatever it is, four spades, if you will. So it only has that, it doesn't have the pictures. She's the one that created the pictures for the minor arcana. And so when you look at the ones that are like, you know, the cups, the wands, the swords, you know, like if you look at like I don't know why I'm thinking of like the three of swords, you know, when it has the three swords going through the heart, she's the one that is the artist of that. Now, here is the thing is like there is a little bit of back and forth on, you know, who is really the one that should be given the credit. You know, is it Pamela Como Smith because she's the one that, you know, drew the art, or is it Arthur Waite? Now, here is the crazy thing is that they say that Arthur Waite told Pamela, you know, exactly what to create, how the illustration should be. But then again, she is the artist, and so she had to see it within her own mind's eye to get it out onto the canvas. So it's a kind of crazy when you think about like, oh yeah, who gets the most credit? Is it is it the person that has the sparks the idea and tells her what to paint, and then she paints it, or was she really channeling intuition, you know, when she created the card deck? Now, a couple of people that I've looked out to, or not even just a couple, a lot of people believe that she does not get the recognition that she deserves. In fact, sometimes you might actually hear the Rider Waite Tarot being called the Arthur Waite Smith deck. You might also hear that as well because they started adding her name to it. And that is because they don't believe that she got the credit that she deserved. Now, here's the thing when you look into how card decks are created, a lot of the times the author is not going to be the illustrator of the deck. A lot of times they are going to pay an illustrator. And that's going to happen in one of two ways is how usually, you know, the contracts form. Now, this does not mean that every contract is this way, but it's going to be one of two ways. The first way is that you are going to pay your illustrator a flat fee. And a lot of times this fee is going to be higher than option two, which we'll get to in a minute. So the author goes ahead and pays the illustrator one flat fee, and that's it. And then the second part is that they might pay them like some kind of fee up front, but then they also get royalties or something along those lines, and they also get the credit. Sometimes inside the contract, it might state that they get the full credit or they don't. Now, here's the thing is that I was explaining this to somebody and they were like, not really believing me. Well, I went through a lot of my card decks and there is a lot of card decks that does not really tell who the artist is, or they say it in very, very fine print in the back of the book or something along those lines. Now, you do see it happening more and more where authors are coming out and they're putting like the illustrator, you know, on the front part of the book, but that doesn't always happen. All right. It depends on what is involved in the contract. So with Pamela Coleman Smith, she was actually contracted for a flat fee for the artwork. And she had a lot of other stuff going on as well. And I just wanted to play a little bit of devil's advocate too, is because they didn't know that the tarot was going to be as amazing as it was. We didn't know that it was going to be so iconic. So it reminds me of like that movie Grease. Like they did not know that Grease was going to become the iconic movie like it is now. And they didn't know that either. And so it's like, when did tarot and the Rider Waite Tarot specifically get huge? Well, according to my research, it really didn't get big and maybe to the 60s or the 1970s. So that is a long time. You know, I need to go in to see how much money that they had made, you know, when it first came out. But just remember, you know, divination wasn't big. You know, we didn't really evolve into more of a spiritual concept until the turn of the century, you know, the 19th century. So right around this time. So it wasn't like we are today where, you know, it's huge and it's everywhere. And I just want to say too, that's the reason why that I illustrated my own children's book. So when I had to go ahead and decide if I was going to hire an illustrator or do my illustrations myself, I know that somebody else could have done the illustrations better than me, but I was like, you know what? I don't want to deal with all the contracts with hiring an illustrator and figuring all that out. So I just did it myself. But anyways, that is a little bit about Pamela Coleman Smith. Now, here is about the Rider-Waite Tarot. Okay. So, the Rider-Waite Smith Tarot was designed by Arthur Waite and illustrated by Pamela Coleman Smith. And just in case you're wondering, because it's so interesting to me, is why in the world is it called the Rider-Waite Tarot? All right. And that is because Rider and Son was a publishing company, William Rider and Son. And Rider-Waite's design became the template for many modern tarot decks. All right. And this was the very first deck to illustrate the minor arcana. So when you are looking at some other tarot decks and they have different pictures and things like that. That is still, if they have 78 cards, that's still considered a tarot deck. Okay. So I just wanted to let you know that a little bit. And let's get right to it. The Rider-Waite Tarot deck. All right. So this is what we were talking about with the Oracle deck. So now we have the history of the tarot, but what in the world is like the Oracle deck? Well, I in particular give credit to Marie Anne Lenormand. Okay. So Marie Anne Lenormand was a influential psychic around her time. All right. And she actually ended up in jail. All right. And she was in jail with what was going to be Napoleon's first wife, Empress Josephine. All right. So her and Josephine were imprisoned, like you do back in the day for speaking up your mind and that kind of thing, or for who you know. Like Josephine was apparently, allegedly in jail for who she knew and her connections. And Marie Anne Lenormand was in jail for speaking up her mind, right? And maybe because, she was, a big mouth psychic, but I liked her for that. So they became friends while in jail, and she ended up telling her that she was going to marry, and Napoleon, basically. I'm not sure if she gave him by name, but they became best friends. And then they kept in touch afterwards. And then she would often read for Empress Josephine and also Napoleon. Well, Napoleon did not like Marie Anne. All right. And he was like he wanted nothing to do with her, especially when she told him that his empire was going to fall. And she also said too that a lot of his luck, a lot of his power, a lot of his everything came from Princess Josephine, Empress Josephine. And that if he were to get rid of her, he would be in turmoil. Well, the truth is that Napoleon loved Josephine, loved her so much. In fact, he was a stepfather to her freaking kids from a previous freaking relationship. But he went ahead and he had to divorce her. He had to get rid of her because she could not bear him a son. Now, it is said that even though he went on to be remarried, that he still loved Josephine very, very much. But is it a coincidence that once they broke up and went their separate ways, that what Marie Anne predicted was true and his whole empire started to crumble and fall without Josephine? That's very interesting. Well, what's also really interesting about Marianne is that she did a different type of reading. She did readings with oracle, well, I want to say oracle cards, with playing cards and also the tarot combined. And she would use tea leaves and all these other things. So I refer to her, along with other people too, as the mother of oracle cards, because she sometimes mixed the divination. And at that point, we had never seen that before. So I feel like she is a mother of oracle cards because she was the first that we know of that blended playing cards and the tarot just to make it a little bit more fun. Now, it's a little bit crazy too, because I don't know how she did it, but whatever. That's not my problem. You need to figure out. But what's really interesting is that her followers loved her so much that after she passed, they actually created a Lenormand deck in her honor. So if you ever seen a Lenormand deck, it is unique. It is different. It is way out there. Okay. I do not understand the Lenormand deck, and you will need to take a class and a course and freaking pay attention. Okay. This is not ones that you could read intuitively. It kind of looked like playing cards. It kind of looked like oracle cards a little bit. It's a little bit of this hybrid thing with totally different rules, completely different rules. And I believe on this next slide, we're going to go over that. Yeah, this is the Lenormand deck right here. So if you're able to see the picture, it looks like a little bit like playing cards, a little bit like confusion, you know? And so it says here that it was not designed by her at all. The first version was called the Game of Hope, all right? And there's 36 cards in each deck. All right, and it has different suits than the tarot. And it's more literal than and practical, often focused on everyday matters rather than spiritual journeys. All right. Like I said, not one that you can really read intuitively with a Letterman deck. So we're going to talk about how oracle cards were born. So they were basically born in the 1970s and became really popular in like the 80s. And unlike the structure of the tarot, is that oracle is free game. There is no structure with the oracle cards. It's like it could have 72, it could have 33. I have some oracle cards that have like 11 cards. Some of them have 22, some of them have 33. I think I have one that has like maybe 98 cards in a deck. And so there are tarot and hybrid cards. So what a hybrid card is that they might follow the structure of the tarot a little bit, but then they change the names of the tarot. They might give you, 24 major arcanas. They might add a suit, little things like that. And a lot of times people call those the hybrids. So Oracle is seen as more positive than the tarot, but it can be as detailed as the tarot. So that's the thing is I got into some arguments back in my day with my spiritual journey when people are like, oh, oracle cards are just for those everyday things and they are all happy and they just happy go lucky and they don't really tell you any of that deeper insight. Not true. Now, it freaking depends on what kind of freaking oracle deck that you are using because some of them are just going to be not good for the reading or the insight that you want to get. Like if I really want to know like what's going to happen with my finances and with my job and things like that, I may not use an oracle deck that's about past lives. I guess it could possibly work if I have a past life connection that's really stopping and blocking me, from my, abundance. Like that could be it. But if I am somebody that's really wondering about, my spiritual journey and how many lives I've had, life purpose deck's not going to work because oracle cards, there's specific oracle cards that are made for specific categories inside of your life. So you're going to have ones that have life purpose and they have past lives one. You're going to have one that's about love, ones that are just about mediumship, all of those. So it's kind of important when you are using an oracle deck to make sure that they really coincide with the topic that you're talking about. Now, there's a lot of oracle card decks that like be good for across the board. But if I'm really wanting to know whether or not I should buy this house, then I'm probably not going to use my Keepers of the Light deck, which talk about which gatekeeper or intergalactic guide is with me. Like knowing that can only help me so much, like it might help me still, but there might be a better card deck for me to use. All right. But oracle cards are on their way. All right, so I want to know first if you have any questions at all. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a what is it called? A post inside the Rise into Your Power group on Facebook. So if you have any questions about this, but now we're going to learn a little bit more about doing readings. So first, getting to know your cards. All right, so the tarot deck. 21 major arcana plus the fool, right? Because the fool is number 0. All tarot decks have 78 cards. The sequence of the major arcana is often referred to as the fool's journey, representing the progression through life's phases, challenges, and enlightenment. All right. Oracle cards do not have that structure. And I just have to say really quick, when it comes to tarot, I was really apprehensive to do tarot. And that was because a lot of tarot people, they're all like, oh my gosh, like that's what this card means. And that's it. And if you say anything different, then you're wrong. No, you're not wrong. Okay. Use your freaking intuition. All right. Things are standing out to you in that card for a freaking reason. All right. So no. You can read tarot intuitively too if you want. It is no big freaking deal. Those little parts, those little things inside of the tarot deck are going to be standing out to you for a reason. So one example that I have when I was learning about this is that a reader was like, oh, the Knight of Cups or whatever came up and I love that one. And that was like my favorite freaking card out of the whole entire deck. But when I looked down, it looked like something was wrong with the knight. And that's when I realized that her boyfriend or whatever, there was something that he was hiding. Come to find out her boyfriend was cheating on her. And she was like, if I would have just read that card, like how it was supposed to be read, she was like, it would have given a totally different meaning. She was like, but I used my intuition and what the card was telling me, and it was able to give me better insight. 100%. Okay. Because your intuition is the number one tool when using any kind of divination tool. Hmm. All right, the minor arcana. Let's talk about this a little bit. The minor arcana consists of four suits: wands, cups, swords, and pentacles, but you might see these different in different card decks. So they might go ahead and use, instead of pentacles, they might use coins, instead of cups, they might use water. Like, this is one of the hard things when you use those hybrid decks, is trying to figure out which freaking suit belongs with which, okay? So, minor arcana is basically used to reflect daily situations and challenges and emotions that shape our personal experiences, as opposed to the major arcana, or the ones talking about major life shifts. Okay. So, if you go ahead and you're doing a reading and there's a lot of major arcanas, that's going to be talking about like a major life events coming up. And just to give you an example of some of the major arcana are going to be the ones that are like the world, the sun, the strength, the hermit, the magician, the emperor, the empress, the high priestess, the magician, the fool, all of those ones. So the ones that have those words on the top of it, those are going to be the major arcana ones. A lot of times they're going to be shown as different colors inside of your card deck. Now you have the minor arcana. So we have the swords. So swords reflects thoughts, conflict, decision making, focusing on mental clarity or strife. Anytime that I see swords, I know there's something to do with mental, like mental, not obviously mental problems, but there's going to be something mental going on. Okay. It could be like self-doubt. It could be frustration. It could be, something there to where the conflicted, even logically. Now, Pentacles deals with material concerns, finances, physical well-being, focusing on tangible outcomes or stabilities. Anytime that I see Pentacles, 99% of the time it's going to be about money, money, money. You 100%. Wands represents passion, creativity, and action, often associated with career ideas or ambitions. Cups symbolizes emotions, relationships, intuition, linked to love and interpersonal connections. Anytime that I see cups, I know that that person or that message is being led with emotion. And so when you see that one of your card layouts is mostly, cups, or it's mostly whatever, that will give you an insight, a little bit of what's the driving force behind like your issue or your solution, depending on what you but depend on what card comes up, right? And what was your intention when you put the card down. So let's do a group reading right now. Are you ready? Okay, so if you are listening to this, this is meant for you. This means that you made it all the way to this end, and we're going to keep on going. So I am going to be pulling 4 cards for everybody here. So the first card is going to be the current energy of this group, of you who is listening now. All right. The second card is going to be current challenges that you're facing. The third card is going to be advice from spirit. And the fourth is going to be possible outcome. And I am using my Archangel Power Tarot deck. Now, if you grab the Oracle 101 course, you will see a little bit about this card deck and how I do spreads and stuff. But let's get right to it. The first card is the current energy of the group. It is the Ace of Ariel, which is also known as the Ace of Pentacles. And it says on here, it is your lucky day, new resources of money, time, or support, a change in job or promotion. So we already know by looking back on this one little here, that we are talking about material concerns, finances, physical well-being, focus on tangible outcomes or stability. And when I read that, I get a lot to do with stability of finances. I know it sounds nuts, but that is really what I am getting. And I'm getting that luck is on our side. So I feel like Spirit is really saying to us that the energy of this group is very, very lucky. And if you're not financially stable, that is something that is on your mind and you want to become more financially independent or financially free. Okay. We're going to keep on going because sometimes we can learn more with just one card pull. We'll learn more of the story as we go along. So it says current challenges. Okay. This is the 7 of Gabriel, which is also known as the 7 of Wands. And it says here, stand up for what you believe in, have confidence, claim your personal power. So what I am picking up here is that it challenges that you don't know your power. You don't know your worth. And you keep on, maybe you do anyways, on picking up, making excuses on why you can't do something, why you can't charge something, why you can't go for that promotion, or why you can't work at that certain area and that certain whatever. I know people that are quitting beautiful jobs, and that's because they are not wanting to learn life lessons that are happening with those jobs. And if you don't learn those life lessons, then you're just going to go right back into the same job that you had before with those same kind of issues. So I would definitely reach out to somebody if that resonates with you. And what I mean by reaching out to somebody, I mean some kind of professional and things like that could help you out. Okay. So if you're somebody that does really good with therapy, then I would definitely go into a therapist. If you're somebody that does more when you have a spiritual insight, I would get maybe a hypnotherapist, getting a spiritual coach, getting a psychic medium, if that is something that really resonates with you and that would help you out. But here it's saying that you need to stand up for yourself, that you really need to own your power. And you know what's coming up right now is rise into your power. I created a rise into your power group when I was really on this role and still am on this role of rising into your power, because so many of us give away our power every single day. We allow other people to walk all over us. We're never ever putting ourselves first. And spirit's like saying, hey, this has got to stop because it is not freaking serving you. All right. 1 second. You need to own your power. All right. Stand up for yourself. And honestly, that 7 right there is just verifying that you are very, very lucky. All right. You're a lucky duck. Okay. So let's move on to the third card. It says advice from spirit. And this one says here, it's the Queen of Michael, which is the Queen of Swords. So it is saying that the vice has to do with your mental state. Okay. And it says here that you know exactly what to do. The benefit of experience, a time for your career rather than relationships. So this is talking about, hey, going ahead and putting some of that effort into like that job that you were thinking about inside of that career, going ahead and investing in yourself. Because it says here that you have great psychic insights. This is actually my June card. So I don't know what June really means. Maybe it's monumental, maybe it's a time, maybe something happened in June with your work. I don't know. But it says here that you know what to do. You already know inside of you. And if you don't know, then you need to meditate on it. But I'm really, really getting, honestly, I'm just getting a lot about the energy of your job, of your work. And like maybe you're just not getting paid enough, maybe you really need to go and make the jump and, do something that like scares you and something that's going to make you feel alive. Maybe you weren't really good, for that job that you wanted, 6 months ago, even a year ago, but maybe now the time has changed. Maybe you're different now. All right. So there's definitely something there that you need to look into, but we're going to get some more information. Okay. So possible outcome. Remember, it's possible. You have free will every time. Okay. Let's look. Ooh, it's decision number 15. Okay. Can you still see this? I just want to make sure. Okay. So this is the devil card in the tarot. Are you scared? Are you scared that we picked up the devil card? I freaking love this card because the devil card is talking about bad habits, okay? And I love this card because it's coming up into possible outcome. So if you can go ahead and release some of your bad habits, then you can go ahead and get everything that you want. You could be sitting pretty financially, you could be sitting pretty in the job, and you can have your cake and eat it too. You are supposed to live life. Life is not supposed to live you. So this is supposed to be your freaking inspiration, right? And the number 15 is coming up a lot too. So I don't know exactly what that means. Like maybe you have association with the number 15, or you just watch out for the 15th of the month. I don't know. But the 15 is coming up really, really big. And it says here, release yourself from which holds you back. A need to detox. Unnecessary worry based on the lack of self-confidence. Okay. So when I look through this card reading, this is the reason why it is really good to do card spreads. It's because we have one of every freaking suit here. Look at that. Look at that. We have a swords. We have a pentacles. We have a wands. We just don't have any cups, but we have a major arcana card. So every single one of them is different. So this is talking about across the board, there's a lot of insight. There's a lot of things going into it. But the biggest thing, though, is that the current challenges are going to be that you need to stand up. Maybe you need to get creative a little bit with your finances, with your time as well. Maybe you need to change up your schedule while you're at work. But it definitely talks about leaving money on the table. Remember, your current situation does talk about money. All right. And then it says advice from spirit. is owning your intuition, owning yourself, and also getting outside of your mind. Like, I'll be honest with you, it makes me feel like you are your own worst enemy when it comes to that. All right. And it's also too, for some reason, too, it's like I know that you want other people to be on your side and to hear what you have to say and to agree with you, but you don't need that. All right. And now, possible outcome is transformation, is complete change, is letting go of the bad habits. It's about reaching beyond who you are now to become who you've always wanted to be. And I tell you what, that is something that I had always worked on and I'm still continuing to work on, because every time that you get to be that person that you dreamt of being, it's like then you just open up more and you're like, wow, I could be this, I could be this, I could be this. And it's going to be really exciting. But getting rid of some of those bad habits, and just honestly, I get like biting the bullet and moving forward. That honestly, that is really what I get. Okay, so let's move on about giving yourself a reading. So now I want you to give yourself a reading. How in the world can you give yourself a reading? So some of you might be seasoned, you got this, all right? But just in case you don't know how, or maybe you want a different way of giving yourself a reading. So first is you're going to set the intention and your protection. So what you do here is that you're going to be like, okay, I only allow 100% love and light to guide me and to give me messages for my highest good. So you want to say some kind of intention and protection. All right. So you want to say, okay, my spirit guide, only teachers of the highest truth and compassion, right? You want to say something along those lines. Okay. And then you want to put the intention of each card that you put down. Like, what does it mean? Because it's going to give out a different card depending on your intention. So if you just want to like do one card, be like, hey, what do I need to know? Then that's fine. But then if you want to be like, hey, what's going on with my husband? Why isn't he talking to me? Bam. Don't worry, my husband is talking to me. It just came to my mind, right? So you want to be like, okay, what's going on with my kids? Bam. That's another intention, okay? But you also just want to make sure that you are only connecting with the highest source, godly source, all right? So now, all right, cool, got that down. Well, how are you going to read it? So this is how you're going to read it. First, use the freaking guidebook. It's there for a freaking reason. I use the guidebook too all the time and freaking coffee and cards and stuff like that because I have over 100 something decks. I can't memorize all of them. And some of them are not very intuitive to read. And then sometimes your body is not set up to be very intuitive. Sometimes you might be tired or things like that. Use the freaking guidebook. The second thing is see the story in the card. What is standing out to you? And why do you think that's standing out to you? So like right now we're looking at the hermit. And so it's like, what part of the hermit is standing out to you? Do all of a sudden is the cane looking, really standing out to you? And all of a sudden you're reminded of your grandpa who used to always use a cane. Bam. That could be a reason that he's bringing some of these messages through to you. All right. Use a tarot cheat sheet. I will put that in the show notes as well. Got to write myself a little note to remember to do that. And so you can use the tarot cheat sheet in the show notes. And then also embrace your intuition, your gut instinct. See and feel what that card means to you. All right. It'll take some practice, but you'll be able to get used to it. Okay. So that is the end of our history of tarot class. I hope that you keep in touch with me and make sure you subscribe to the podcast and all that jazz. And I will see you right back here on Monday for our weekly reading. And then be sure to grab the Oracle 101 course because, hey, you pay whatever you want. All right. So I will see you in that course as well. All right. See you soon. And until I see you next time, I hope you live a spiritual AF life.